Let's get at her. It is another episode of the Mainly Broncos podcast. First things first, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the MHRT network page over there on YouTube. Also, for anybody that does not know, we also have a YouTube channel over there on Mainly Broncos. So hit the subscribe over there on Mainly Broncos YouTube channel. Exciting show. We have some Broncos news to talk about. So we'll dive a little bit into that. Maybe some 13 reasons why Pat Bryant is the reason why for a certain trade, if you will. We'll talk about that. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go a little bit in chronological order for like what happened first in terms of the preseason game. And then we'll talk about something that happened here on this hump day, this Wednesday. But the boys are in the house. The people are lighting up the chat. We have Brandon over there in the top right corner. Follow him at Brandon Miller PO. Follow Jordan at Jordan T. Lopez. And myself at Cameron Parker PO. What's up, Dak? What's up, Victory Lap? That's right. Let's go, Broncos. Kodiak is in the house. And, of course, respect my co's, everyone's favorite Judy fan, aside from Jordan.
Your brother right there.
Yeah. We might actually reference Judy, but it has nothing to do with Judy. But anyway, well, gents, we had a preseason game. It was actually the second preseason game. It was also the first unofficial home game of the 2025 season. And the Broncos once again came out on top. They dominated the Arizona Cardinals 27-7. The starters did not play, or at least a fair amount of the starters played, unless, you were Evan Ingram, who, rolled out in terms of the very first series, being down there at like the 3-yard line. Probably making a lot of us go, oh no, we're going to get a Baron Browning type of situation where he's going to play into the third quarter and he's going to play on special teams and he's going to make us feel all uncomfortable. That didn't last long. And he gave us a very exciting moment because they were not backed in a corner no more. There was a play where Evan Ingram was there to fruition. It was an exciting play, and we got a chance to see Evan Ingram in action. We got a chance to see the Joker in action. So it was an exciting preseason. The Broncos came out with that big W. Exciting time, boys. So, Brandon, kick us off. How you feeling?
Yeah, man, that was like the, dare I say, best tight end play that we've had in Denver in, I don't even know, years. I don't know how many years it's been, but years. I was actually at that game. And I unfortunately missed that part of it because I was slightly late because my seats were literally at the very top of the stadium, like could not go possibly higher. Every time they saw the fireworks, I was like, are those like gunshots behind me? Because I just felt like the wall rumble. But went back and watched the highlights, at least of the parts of the game that I missed. And that was a crazy play by Ingram. Great to see. Definitely some blocking as well by some other players that we'll talk about that made a big impact. And you talk about it being the first preseason game of obviously of the year at home, which is true. But what I was going to say is it's actually the first game in the Troy Franklin breakout 2025 season. Is what I came here to say, because damn, that was a crazy performance by Troy. And we'll talk about the full recap, but there were definitely there were trades that were probably finalized as part of that game because of the people that showed out and showed how
there might have been some trades finalized for sure.
How unnecessary other individuals were. But I will say, I do think, Evan Ingram looked great. Super excited to see more of that. in the regular season from a tight end, which is crazy to even consider because I don't even know, again, the last time I saw a tight end that made any sort of noteworthy offensive play for this team. And then Stidham looked pretty good as well. So it was exciting.
Jordan, obviously, you wish you were at the game, but obviously you were not, because you live in the beautiful state of Florida. But how was it watching as a fan?
It was amazing, especially the very first drive where it took us 4 plays, 97 yards, 96 yards, and made it look extremely easy. There's just so much hype around this team, like so much being talked about. Like the Broncos fever is like at an all-time high, and I just need the season to start already because every single day we're hearing something about the Broncos being so good, and then another analyst saying this is my sleeper team to make the Super Bowl or whatever. Like there's just so much hype and like momentum going in for Denver, and it's favorable in terms of their first 2 games, which is now going to be a rookie playing his very first NFL game, which is my guy Cam Ward. But then also now week 2, which I will be in Indianapolis for. We played Daniel Jones, so like they can very much start off with a bang. But that preseason game against the Cardinals just shows how much depth we have. I mean, it's truly remarkable the amount of like people we have at each position and how deep it really is.
We should all wear black to week 1 of the regular season because it will be Cam Ward's funeral.
I
love Cam Ward, but I'm just like, what a brutal welcome to the NFL moment for your very first game to go against this defense. I'm nothing against Cam Ward. I'm just like, I feel like it's gonna be a welcome to the NFL moment. And again, I love Cam Ward. I think he's gonna be good. But first game, brother, I'm sorry.
Like everyone is healthy. Everyone's healthy. Like
Nick Benito's gonna wreck. Like he's gonna wreck a drive all by himself again.
Yeah,
hopefully
Benito's coming off a contract extension at that point. You know, so we'll see.
Yeah. So just it was an exciting game, and at least even though it is preseason, to the expectations of everything that we were seeing, the Broncos are backing it up. Like the Broncos are backing it up by playing incredibly well. And so I think that let's start first again with this preseason game, and we'll dive into the possible effects and outcomes of what happened afterwards, if you will. One of the keys we really wanted to see going into this preseason game was the running back room, right? Like, can RJ Harvey find that nice little medium of when to bounce outside, when not to bounce outside? You got a really good chance to see that. Like, and so on that run, which they capitalized on, you got a chance to see him get skinny, which you hear a lot of people talk about, but get skinny and find the hole and bounce it basically between 2 different offensive linemen. And Calvin Throckmorton deserves so much praise, for his block on that play. Exceptional run. Frankly, stuff that you don't see from a Broncos running back. And I believe it was Gage who said yesterday, really, and he might be accurate, but the Broncos have not seen a running back kind of get that low and see vision like that probably since Phillip Lindsay. But like it was something to watch in terms of that kind of run. And so to see that type of vision was everything that Sean had been preaching about, right? Like his vision, and so we saw at least his prowess of what he could be as a receiving back, and the plays that they used. But to see that kind of run, Jordan and Brandon, to cap off that drive was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a welcome sight for, again, how absolutely atrocious this running game was last year. It was also nice to see, obviously he's a rookie and there's going to be some growing pains, but see him keep that run inside and get into the end zone. Hopefully we're going to see a lot more of that in the regular season, but just as we'll talk about with the wide receiver room, I feel like specifically with like obviously RJ Harvey's already the starter, but with what was shown in that game, I think certain other player has become quite expendable and will not remain on this roster for much longer. And I don't even think we're going to be able to get anything for him. I think he's just not going to be here. And I am, of course, speaking of Mr. Audric Estime, because if you're able to, like, if you're like thing that you're billed as and known for coming into the NFL is like a power back, like a goal line back, and you're running with this offensive line, there's no excuse for you to not perform well as a rookie. Like, yeah, there's a learning curve, but rookie running backs perform. Like,
right.
That's an established fact. But no, it was great to see. It was great to see that from Harvey.
I mean, let's just kind of get into that elephant in the room. You know, I mean, like, there's so much to be made about this running back room, and you know, we'll talk about another position group, and we'll save that part for last to lead us into the conversation that's probably going to be dominating a vast majority of the show. But I think that for the running back room, it really is kind of about like, what is your favorite flavor of running back? And then in terms of like, you know, the way that you look at the way things are kind of shaped out with this running back room, like, I think everybody at this point would be surprised if Audric Estime is on this team. It's just about like who is your 4 or 5 running backs that you're going to be keeping on this team, right? So it's very interesting to kind of see the way things have shaped out, but it does not seem like Estime is is on this team, whether that be a trade. And you know, we'll certainly talk about something that happened that might have been a trade. What type of value, if there is one thing that we know about the Broncos, or specifically George Paton, is he is going to ooze out value out of a player who we all think has no trade value.
That is fair. I'm excited to see what he does there, because if we're talking about flavor of the week, I'm sorry, but Audric Estime is like the flavorless, colorless blob.
Yeah,
I'm just like, this is nothing. There's nothing there. But
so I don't know. It would not surprise me if Peyton and Peyton Company decided to trade Audric Estime for possibly value of something that none of us saw coming. Just evidenced by Trinity Benson, obviously Albert Okwue. Trinity Benson's actually the prime example. We'll reference him for a little bit later. But just oozing out 2 draft picks for Trinity Benson is still incredible to look at it this day. So it would be wild if you're able to get something out of Audric Estime.
Even going back to the Okwue trade,
mm-hmm.
Like, there's always something.
I actually thought Albert had no value, like no trade value at all, and we still got something back from him, even if it was something little. But I can see
it was like a 6th or something.
Well, I want to say it was a 6 or a 7, or maybe like a swap or something like that. But even so, like, I'm pretty sure Estime is not going to make the 53, and then we will try to explore trade options for him. I wonder if that is just a simple 7th rounder to like the Niners, who usually have running back injury problems and stuff like that. But yeah, that's another player I'm keeping my eye on, is Estime and what happens there.
Dude, if Audric Estime can't revive his career somewhat in San Francisco, if they can't get anything out of him,
yeah,
he's done. I'm sorry. Hang him up, put him on a shelf. Just wouldn't. I feel like that's actually really good. That's a really good trade destination.
Bags and a bag of chips and some root beer vapes.
I'll take half a stick of gum.
Yeah, so I just think that it's going to be really interesting how it shakes out, because I think you do talk to maybe some of the people in terms of like what's their favorite running back room. It would obviously consist of the main 2, which would be JK and RJ. And then it's about Tyler Bidet, Blake Watson, or is it Julian McLaughlin? Obviously, if there is one thing about Sean Payton that we know, just because you are Sean Payton's guy does not mean you're a lock on this team. He loved Tim Patrick, right? He loved Tim Patrick, and Tim Patrick ended up moving on. So Jaleel McLaughlin is a Sean Payton guy, but that doesn't mean he's a lock for this team. So I think if you are looking at probably some of the favorites for the running back room that I would be wanting, if you will, in terms of the 4 horsemen to lead that backfield, it would be obviously J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, Tyler Toilet, and Blake Watson.
I mean, I think that's a pretty strong 4 rotation. I can't see us keeping more than 4.
Right.
Like that, carrying 5 running backs just seems kind of overkill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Jordan?
I kind of see keeping those 4. I mean, I don't even think a big game from Estime, like in the last preseason game, can even save him at this point. I think if he doesn't have the game, it's because we're featuring him and we're trying. Like it's the classic Albert O situation. We're gonna beat him as many times as we can and try to get a pick out of him. The only reason why I said the 49ers for Estime is just because we had joint practice with them. They had a really good extended look at Estime, in person already in a practice setting.
There's a player injured already.
Yeah, so like that's why I said the 49ers. It could be anywhere else. It could be back to the Saints at this point, since for some reason they want to trade draft assets, even though they should be keeping them. But like the 49ers were one of the teams that came up to the top of my head. So for some reason, the Dolphins are looking into running backs, even though they've drafted one for like each of the past 4 years. But yeah, the Estime situation is going to get real interesting within like the next 72 to 96 hours, basically.
Yeah. So moving on with the Broncos game a little bit, we are going to move a little bit away from the offensive side of the ball. We may end with the offensive side of the ball, but we're going to go to the defensive side. And if there is one thing truly, I mean, obviously this team has been a huge proponent of depth. You don't need to look no further than the defense, the way things have been shaking out. There were probably a few shaky moments there early on, but they really clamped up, really quickly. In terms of like, one thing's in terms of the touchdowns and everything kind of got settled. Then the defense really kind of just settled into the game. You really got a chance to see a lot of the players and safeties and even the trenches start to really kind of take shape and take form. One case in particular was a rookie, right? Jade Barron really started to kind of really make a name for himself on some plays. Then you had kind of Damari Mathis, who was basically like the microcosm of what his career has been, if you will. Like, well, he'll show a few moments, he'll show a few things here and there, but he gives up that big play, and he was responsible for, biting on a double move, right? Like biting on a double move, and obviously ended up having a touchdown scored on him, which was a lone touchdown. So things don't certainly bode well for Mathis, but I think that, if there's one thing we know about NFL players who pursue a rap career, it means your career is most likely not a good one, as evidenced by some of those players who pursue rap careers as NFL athletes.
Man, don't tell that to a certain tight end who just unretired in the Jordan's neighborhood that will remain nameless.
Or Anthony Richardson.
That's right.
Wait, Anthony Richardson is rapping? He's a rapper?
Yes, he is.
Did he make a rap about how he took himself out of a game?
I'm sure that's probably coming in the next 7 days.
Out.
Yeah. But what were your guys' takeaways, Brandon and Jordan, for the defense?
The biggest takeaway for me on the defensive side of the ball was absolutely Jonah Ellis. Jonah Ellis is a dog, and I'm so excited to see him play in his second year. He just looks like we grow pass rushers on trees. Jonah Ellis is the latest crop.
Yeah, Jonah Ellis was by far my biggest. I mean, the fact that he is a rotational guy for us when he could possibly be starting for, I don't know, 1/3 of the league. I mean, just off the top of my mind with bad edge rooms are like Carolina, Atlanta, Tennessee. Actually, surprisingly, the Commanders that do not have a good edge room. Hence why they just signed a old Von Miller. Yeah, like Jonah Ellis being our backup is awesome.
D'Andrea Tillman is another. Like it's just it's one where they have an embarrassment of riches. Q Robinson is another one. And Jonah Ellis, man, like you and I talked about it, Jordan. Like there's a player who is just destined to be the breakout player from the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Chris Abrams-Drain is certainly deserving of that conversation. But, I mean, Jonah Ellis, man, that dude I pray it works out in Denver so we can see what that final form is going to end up being like. But he is on a rise. That is the biggest thing. Heroic rise right now. Go ahead, Brandon.
The biggest thing I think that sucks about that is, like, Jonah Ellis is on that kind of trajectory of, like, if this room gets too full and he looks that good, flip him for like a round 2 or 3 pick or something.
Well, I mean, you might get him for 8 first.
Yeah, with the way things work with this front office, you never know.
Could.
Yeah,
but I really don't want that to happen because depth at pass rusher is pretty important, and also Jonah Ellis needs to stay a Bronco because dude looks absolutely just unstoppable.
Yeah, we talk about arcs. Jonah Ellis would be on the Shaq Barrett arc.
No, don't you put that evil on me.
Like Jonah Ellis is kind of like on that career arc of like a Nick Benito. Like his rookie year, he showed flashes, but like wasn't like a starter, right? And then now year 2 of Jonah Ellis, he might have that year of like, okay, there might be something really special, even though we see it now. But like I'm like in terms of just like production and actually putting it out there, like it can get pretty scary.
You saying Jonah Ellis about to have 13.5 sacks?
Not 13.5, but I mean, listen, we didn't think Nick Benito can get 13.5 sacks.
No. But I see exactly what you mean. Like, I think Jonah Ellis flashed more as a rookie than Nick Benito did.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Jonah Ellis, I think in my opinion, I think we would have to look at the stats, but it looked like Jonah Ellis got more playing time as a rookie than Nick Benito did as a rookie. I mean, obviously the numbers will tell, but even if that's not the case, at least Jonah Ellis made the most out of his time when he was out on the field. That's what we can 100% agree on. But yeah, it's the second year for Jonah Ellis is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I know Andy, if he's in the chat or he's watching the stream, he's big on Jonah Ellis. I mean, he is big on the Jonah Ellis fan club, and so just the thought of him possibly being traded is probably one where you're ripping the heart out of many people in some Broncos country. So
I mean, I remember people not like wanting, like, I know it was early, but fans tend to overreact a lot. But like people were like, but is Benito ever going to show anything? Like they were just kind of like anxious with him. And like with Jonah Ellis, we immediately saw him as a rookie.
Well, there's that before the thing even took off, if you will, for Jonah, like when he was drafted, Brandon and I, like, we were going through and we, like, granted, we weren't necessarily like looking at the tape, but like there was that, like, what was it, Brandon? Like there was that like 3 or 4 game stretch in college when he was when he was playing, where like he racked up like 5 sacks in like 3 games.
Yeah, he just went on like an absolute tear.
And so it's just one where obviously when he was drafted, he was just one where it's just like it was sacks, he was QB hits, he was tackles for loss. Like he was racking up everything. And so like if you want to look at someone who's like a high volume type of pass rusher, like of what he can be, like that was I think one of our eye-opening moments of like they might have something, in the building here. And then obviously the film backed it up. He ended up having that relentless motor. So it's going to be interesting because there's a legit argument that Jonah Ellis might be one of the best run defenders too, like on this team. Like, and that even goes for guys like Nick Benito and obviously Jonathan Cooper. And I know Dondrea Tillman is probably the most underrated still, like the most underrated pass rusher of that unit. And even he is really good on the run. And I think that when I had a conversation with Mario because he was at the game, and he mentioned the point, and I thought it was a good one, is that like when you look at it from the standpoint of Dondrea, he was brought to from the UFL, right? And it's like with the UFL, there was for the Broncos, like there was no preseason. There was no anything. So when he joined the Broncos, like he won the championship and then he immediately joined the Denver Broncos, right? Like it wasn't a case where, like where he had like a preseason of his own, if you will, to get ready. Like he just went right into the Broncos roster, didn't miss a beat, and really hasn't missed a beat since he joined the club. And Tillman has just gotten better. He's become a little bit more of a well-rounded player for the team. So it's going to I will say this is the first time I have been pretty excited about an edge room since 2015.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's going to be special, man. It's going to be so much fun to watch. Like Jonah Ellis being like the rotational guy, just unfair. With
even Q Robbins, too, we briefly touched on him, but like he has a quick get off that is like Ellis and Nick Benito. Like, so the fact that you rotate that in and out, like it's crazy. And Andrew Farmer, and I don't mean the Broncos fan, Andrew Farmer, but Andrew Farmer, the pass rusher, to what Rich was mentioning there, is playing well. He did have a good game against the Cardinals.
Yeah. Brandon mentioned it. The depth on this edge room is so important because once guys are rotating in and out due to them needing just a little rest here and there, but you substituting Jonah Ellis out there like on a random second down and he comes up big on a TFL or a sack or a pressure. I mean, it's huge. And I mean, and hopefully that edge room can stay healthy, but it is football. It's, stuff happens. Unfortunate injuries happen. If it does, I think we are all very confident in someone like Jonah Ellis getting that, fitting in that starting spot and then obviously making a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next up on the defense, I thought that is just continuing to be really impressive. And probably a surprise in a sense because we were questioning this was linebacker depth. We were questioning what is the linebacker depth of this team, with the Drew Sanders injury, and obviously given with what we know about Dre Greenlaw injury, Singleton's recovering or injury, like the linebacker depth has been incredibly impressive. So Corinne Reed, Jordan Turner really emerged after that Cardinals game, really emerged. So much so they actually cut J.B. Brown today. They cut J.B. Brown, who there were some people that felt like he was going to end up being an undrafted free agent, diamond in the rough, right? Like, so like the linebacker depth now specifically with like Lavelle Bailey and Corinne Reed, how many linebackers do the Broncos keep now? So, right, like obviously you got Greenlaw, you got Singleton, you're going to end up probably with Justin Strnad, right, who's going to be on special teams and so forth. But then you have Karen Reed and you have Lavelle Bailey. Obviously, I think we all expect Bailey to be making the 53. But how many linebackers now at this point do they actually keep? It's going to be really interesting.
So I'll let Jordan go first on that one.
Again, I think it shows like the depth, right, between now, like not only just that position, but like throughout the whole roster, right? Like there's going to be tough decisions being made, like as Sean Payton said. Cam, what do you do with the back end of that position room? Like, because I kind of have an idea, but what do you do with the back end of that position room?
The linebacker room, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's almost...
There's two specific guys I have mentioned, but there's also another guy that may be a possibility, and I think you're going to mention him.
Are you talking about Jordan Turner?
There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, it's we briefly mentioned the name, but I mean, like, it's one where the way I look at Jordan Turner to a certain degree is almost like what we saw last year with Lavelle Bailey, right? Obviously, Bailey didn't necessarily, Turner hasn't exactly made the same impact, right, that Bailey did last year. But he came on like pretty like late, if you will, into the preseason. And obviously due to injury, he couldn't necessarily be on the 53, but he was on the season-ending injury and everything, which was unfortunate. But I mean, you look at probably this room, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And because of the Drew Sanders injury, they make it so that the Drew Sanders stuff, he actually might not be on the team. He's obviously going to be dealing with his injury, and he'll be coming back probably at the midway point of this season. But there's no guarantee the moment he's back, he is a Denver Bronco at that point. Because like it could be to the point where he comes back off of and he's healthy, and they make the very tough decision to be like, you know what? We really like where things are with Karen Reed, Lavelle Bailey, and Jordan Turner, because they're on the team. And so because it afforded us a chance to have guys like this, those three other guys like this on the team. So I think there's a very good chance they keep possibly 5 linebackers.
Yeah. Well, you get to go younger too there.
Reed. The other guy was Karen Reed that I was going to mention real quick, but yeah. Brandon, what do you got to say?
I was going to say, just you get to go younger there as well. Like, you have some good guys up front. You have obviously Alex and Dre, but they're not the youngest guys. I mean, Dre Greenlaw is only 28, which just kind of blows my mind. But he's 28.
Wow. I did not think he was 28.
Yeah, I know, right? But I think you need to have some young depth that you can kind of turn to. I think Lavelle Bailey, Jordan Turner to me are probably close to locks at this point to make the roster. And then beyond that, the Drew Sanders thing with his injury, like Cameron said, I don't even know if he can make the team. If they like Justin Strnad just still as kind of that depth in special teams, if they really like him primarily on special teams, like I could easily see us keeping those 5, like Singleton, Greenlaw, Strnad, Bailey, and Turner. And then if they like Reed, and he kind of shows up and starts to look good, it definitely could be. I think there could be maybe a case for 6, but I do think it's pretty likely that you see 5.
And obviously
with Strnad being more of a special teams piece.
It's the same argument that we have about the running back room, right? Because it's one where you talk about the highest. It's a little bit different to the degree of like high floor, high ceiling, but it's just like, what is the highest ceiling of where things could possibly go, for this linebacker room, right? In terms of overall development and overall probably fit with, either with what Vance Joseph wants and or Jim Leonard wants just overall for the defense, right? And just the position coaches, like what they would want. So like, if you ask me, obviously we're going to end up having Dre Greenlaw. And I also, in Singleton, I will say this, I think that probably the most bodies would be the most beneficial, just given the fact of the with Singleton and Greenlaw, you have no idea what injuries are going to be taking place, right? So I think that it would at least be beneficial for you to have at least 5, right, on your team, and knowing the depth of it. So I agree. I do think it's not out of the realm of possibility that they do keep 6, but I think Jordan Turner is probably practice squad bound. I think it's a little bit too soon to probably say he's on the 53, but if he goes out and he has a Keaton Smith type of game in this third one against the Saints, it's going to be darn, and I know it's just a third one in the final preseason game, but it's going to be darn impossible to keep him off the practice squad at that point.
So that's why I asked you that question, Ken, because I think he is a practice squad guy, but with just how much talk there is of Denver and how much depth we have, and like just with like the trade we did today, like all the insiders saying with Broncos have depth at every position, like we hear it every day. Can we sneak a guy like a Jordan Turner on the practice squad without him getting picked up? I think we can, but it doesn't scare me. But like there's like a real possibility of like other teams really looking at Denver's transactions and what they do and who they cut and who they put on the practice squad, because they understand how deep we are, especially at a lot of positions.
Yeah, no, and I think it's going to be interesting. And the other part of it too is there's also other teams that are there's also us that are going to be looking too. So we might be looking at the room where I think a fair amount of the years, just I think in general, we've kept a fair amount of the guys we wanted to on the practice squad. But we kind of poached like 1 or 2 players and had them on the practice squad. So I think it's going to be interesting. Moving forward with the, I should say the defense, I will give it to you, Jordan, because this has been one of the positions or players that you've been wanting to follow. How did J.L. Skinner do against the Arizona Cardinals? Did he meet the Jordan Lopez qualifications?
Yes, I am just like how there's the leaders of like the Jonas Ellis Club and all that. I do tend to maybe be the leader of the JL Skinner Club. I don't know, maybe that's up for debate. I don't know, but I thought JL Skinner he played well against the Cardinals. I wouldn't say he played like amazing like how he did against the Niners, where he had the forced fumble and all that, but like
where he literally obliterated Amir Abdullah so much they already put him on like short-term IR.
I have high expectations for JL Skinner. It's just so unfortunate that we might not see him in the role that I would like to see him in. Hopefully he can get to that level. I know he had like one missed tackle that was, I don't want to say pretty bad, but I'd expect him to make that play. But I think the more snaps he can get on defense and maybe being inside the box. I mean, I wrote about it on Predominantly Orange, but he can be a guy that can be a depth piece in that linebacker room just because of the qualities and traits that he has as a player and play inside the box. And I described it all in my story, but I know Skinner's going to make the 53 just purely off of special teams. I mean, he is arguably probably our most important special teams player, but I do see a role for him in the defense. I would like to see it come to fruition.
So here's what I'll ask, Brandon and you, Jordan, and I'll give my piece too. But the safety room, right? So we just talked about how the linebacker room could very well carry 6. Well, they carried 6 safeties last year. Or was it 5 safeties? But they carried a fair amount of safeties last year. And Keaton Smith was that type of player where he played so well in preseason, it was impossible, to where they literally had to have him on the 53, and they couldn't put him on the practice squad. Do they keep 5 or even 6 safeties, right? Because I think it's fair to say that Locke is going to be on the team. Skinner is going to be on the team. Do we have a lock and key type of situation where Devon Key is still on this team? DeLaren Turner-Yell has had an uphill battle really ever since his injury. Kind of surprised he's still on the team at this point. So he's probably not going to be able to make it. So it's really one where it's, I guess probably that's your question, right? If you're going to be wanting 5 or 6 linebackers, would you rather have 5 or 6 linebackers, or would you rather have 5 or 6 safeties?
Personally, I'd rather have 5 or 6 linebackers because here's where I kind of stand with this. The safety room, couple of thoughts. I am a little worried about the depth there just because like Devon Key did not look good, to be honest. And I think we could maybe pick up someone still before the season or just add some more competitiveness there. I'm surprised DeLaren Turner-Yell is also still on this team like that. I would agree with you there. And then
Franklin's a special teamer.
Yeah, Franklin. And then Keaton Smith is interesting. The reason I say I'd still rather have put that depth or put that heavier number at linebacker is I feel like, and I'm not saying like this is definitely going to happen. I'm not saying I think this is the best option, but depending on what the team decides to do, I think Jahdae Barron can play some safety and look good doing it. And I think when you're looking at this depth chart and where he could maybe make some impact, I mean, you have McMillan, who's like already a very good slot corner. So if you need some safety play, like you're not losing much by going to McMillan. I mean, obviously Jahdae Barron is like incredible and he's better than McMillan, but I think keeping McMillan around, and like people talk about, Jahdae Barron's going to take McMillan's spot, and that could be true, but I think having McMillan is like a very valuable depth for nickel corner. Lets you have Barron maybe play a little bit of safety if you need some guys there, or you want to have like Hufanga, Jones, and one of like 3 safeties back there, and one of them's kind of like a roamer, and that's going to be Barron. I don't know, but I feel like I would rather have the linebacker numbers just because of the flexibility that you have with Barron. But I do want to see more competition, or even just like someone else added to that safety room, because the guys we have there right now, I mean, obviously Hufanga, all pro level safety, but health wise is a little bit of an issue. PJ Locke, I think, is solid. JL Skinner, I haven't seen enough of him as a safety, but like for what I have seen of him in general, I think he's good. Maybe, but like there's a little bit of an unknown there. And then just like Smith is like a little bit of an unknown. Key, I don't think is the best. And then like Franklin is special teams, and Yell, I'm surprised is still here. So like I think you got to add maybe something there,
Jordan.
But I do think just with Barron, you have a little bit of flexibility.
The safety room is an interesting one. Like we're all like comfortable with Brandon Jones, Hufanga, and Locke at that point,
right?
But I could see Jahdae Barron playing a bit safety every once in a while. I've been on it, but we haven't seen enough of Skinner at the safety position, even though he is more in the box, in my opinion. But I think they're gonna get it right. I know Sam Franklin is a special teams guy. Is he a lock?
You're saying he's not the Trent Sherfield of the safety room.
I don't know. You could do a lot of interest. Listen, I'm not also big on Devon Key either. There's a lot of unknowns with that back end of the safety room, I should say, besides JL Skinner. I know you can move Jahdae back there a little bit and have him roam around, but it's also, I think another big part that plays into this is how is Vance going to play personnel-wise, like package-wise? Is he going to go a lot into more of a dime package? I know we've heard about that a little bit more this offseason just because of the versatility we have on the defense with guys like a Hufanga, Barron, and stuff like that. So I think when the 53-man roster comes out, I think it'll give us a tell on the type of packages we'll kind of see within that defense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it is a very interesting question in the sense of what would you most be comfortable in terms of keeping 5 or 6? Would it be the safety room or the linebacker room? And I probably would say the linebacker room, at least off the rip, but I'd have to probably think about it a little bit some more. So I don't know the answer based on just probably the depth of it. So because I do think Sam Franklin is at least probably the Trent Sherfield of that room, maybe initially, but he also, unlike Sherfield, is not really shown enough, whereas Sherfield has shown enough. Actually, the wide receiver room, now that we think about it, has actually shown quite a bit. In terms of the this Broncos off season. Obviously, Evan Ingram was added to the mix. You might as well talk about him in this wide receiver discussion. But so much so that we were trying to figure out what exactly is going to be happening with this wide receiver room. Are they going to be keeping 6? Is it actually going to be 5? But the bonus is actually 6 because Evan Ingram is kind of a wide receiver. And where is the unk of the room going to be fitting in? And of course, when I mean the unk of the room, I mean Devon Vele. Well, I think it's safe to say that answer has been made. Devon Vele has been traded to the New Orlean Saints. He is heading now to Bourbon Street. Stay away from Mardi Gras, Devon. But those beignets, if you're going to try some beignets, I hear the beignets are really good on Bourbon Street. But they traded Devon Vele to the New Orleans Saints for 2 draft picks. So as much as we were using the reference of Trinity Benson, they Trinity Bensoned this deal. They got 2 draft picks, and actually they traded it to a team, and as Jordan mentioned and Brandon mentioned earlier, to a team who clearly feels very comfortable about trading draft picks for a team that has a bottom of the barrel roster in the NFL. So I think we have a now pretty good indication, gents, of where this wide receiver room is headed.
Yeah, I mean, Devon Vele, as much as I love him, I think there's I have 2 thoughts here. So Devon Vele, for as great as he was for us last year, I think that really says a lot about the state of the wide receiver room going into this season than it did last season. Because if he was kind of the wide receiver 2 last year and now he's expendable, I do want to hear this as well, so I'll speed up here. And now he's expendable. I think that says a lot about, how Pat Bryant has looked, and I'll give it to Jordan for that in a minute. I think Pat looked great. I think Pat, specifically in the Cardinals game, dude's kind of showing out a little bit. And then the Troy Franklin breakout is coming. And then also, Trent Sherfield is a dude. He's going to be, I don't know how you don't get him, on the field as much as you he's got to be every game he's got to be available. You got to suit him up. So I think just Vele is just buried on the depth chart a little bit. And I think, as much as it sucks to lose him, I think this is a good sign. For how good he looked last year, the reason we had to rely on him is because the rest of the room was terrible. And now the rest of the room is such an improved unit that he just is not. He just is kind of extra baggage that we are able to get some value for. So I'm shocked that we were able to get a 4th and a 7th. That's just a fleece. And not
just any 4th, a 20.
It's going to be a high 4th.
2026 4th. So next year's 4th, which everybody is basically expecting for it to be
the Saints to suck. Yeah.
The top end of the 4th round, which for anybody that is not good at math and wants a brief description there, that means it is the possibility of being a top 100 draft pick. Like, just letting you guys know about it. So
I think it's real quick. I think it's also good for Devon. Like, I think he could go into New Orleans and be
literally their wide receiver 1,
kind of their wide receiver 2. It depends on, I don't know exactly the state of Chris Olave's health, but Rashid Shaheed is kind of just their burner. Brandon Cooks fills that same role. He's also 31. And then the rest of that room is kind of just like just dudes. So I think Devon Vela is going to have really shot to be a wide receiver 2. So good for him. But yeah, I mean, he just seemed expendable since the emergence of Franklin, the drafting of Pat Bryant, and I think Pat Bryant has looked good.
And signing of Evan Ingram.
And the signing of Evan Ingram. And Pat, just wanted to gas you up a little bit before I send it over to your biggest hater.
So Jordan, give us your 13 reasons why.
Show me on this doll where Pat Bryant hurt you.
Or the 13 reasons why the Broncos made this trade and why it has nothing to do with Pat Bryant. Obviously, I'm not referring to the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why.
Man, I mean, I know everybody tuned in just to see what I have to say about Devon Vele and not Pat Bryant. I think Pat Bryant is I'll get to Pat Bryant in a little bit, but in terms of Devon Vele, I think he does have a real good chance in New Orleans to be like a real deal receiver, especially, they're rebuilding over there. I know in theory you want to get younger. I don't know if they really got younger. And again, they traded draft assets, which were questionable to begin with, but I do hope Vele does shine over there. I know we talked about it last week, Cam, with Vele, like he might be on his way out, and Lord and behold, man, everybody is wanting to know about this Pat Bryant thing, huh? All right, well, we'll just cut to the chase here. Yes, this Vele trade does signal a major confidence that the staff has in Pat Bryant.
And not just Pat Bryant too, by the way. Like,
yeah, and also Troy Franklin, but I think more so Pat Bryant. I am not going to be naive of that. Now, on the other hand, everyone was raving about Pat Bryant, how he looked against the Cardinals, and he had very good stats and he produced a lot. Now, I am not going to overreact like a lot of people on social media and go absolutely crazy after he caught a wide open 20-yard dig route against a zone coverage and was wide open and make it seem like he was the greatest thing ever. Listen, that's not being a hater. That's just the guy was wide open and he made a catch, and then everybody thought that it was the best thing ever. Yes. Did he run the right route? Yes, but that's expected of. I know we can dive into all that, but Pat Bryant did what he had to do in the preseason game against the Cardinals. That's 100%. I am not going to knock him off for that. But I will say, after that game and the PR that Bryant got it was a simple dagger concept. Yeah, I know he was wide open because he got into the soft spot. Well, the route was a dagger concept. He was going to that. So it was a perfectly placed play call from Sean Payton. I know everybody would rather give everything and all the praise to Pat Bryant, but again, I wouldn't take it that far. Actually, the most impressive play Pat Bryant had, at least in my eyes, was the ball that was thrown at his ankle.
Yeah.
The ball. I thought that was way more impressive than the other plays he made because that was a very tough catch. But again, I'm going to wait till the regular season. And I'm going to wait till we get some actual starters on starters type film that we can look at and see how he produces there. I'm still going to have my questions about him. I hope he pans out. Like, I hope he proves me wrong because I'm not that guy like a lot of people on social media where just because he's not my guy, I don't want him to be awful. But again, I hope he proves me wrong. I am not going to I am not going to give him a lot of praise and flip out over wide open catches. That's just not me.
I will say
I'm afraid for everybody, but you know,
You got to have someone execute it, man. Great play call. Someone's got to execute. But anyway.
Michael Benny could have ran that dig route and caught the ball. That's how wide open he was. But God forbid.
Wait, what was that? Say that again.
Michael Bandy can run that same route and be just as open. No one was there. But I digress. I don't want to piss off everyone. I just want to.
Amen. If that's the kind of stuff that Pat Bryant excels at, he can play that Michael Thomas role. He's throwing slants,
he's gonna
run daggers.
He's gonna be the next Billy Ray. So.
Actually, I would say that the Keenan Allen comparison or comp or archetype, if you will, is probably my favorite one for him. Like,
it is mine too, actually. That I do agree with that.
Because I will say, like, it's one where he's not flashy, but he's such a savvy route runner where he's going to find those soft spots in the zone. He's going to have those sure hands, which is pretty obvious what you could say about Keenan Allen. Like, Keenan Allen is a sure-handed wide receiver. And I thought that the catch down on his ankles was pretty evident about that.
Yeah.
And so I will say, I think that Pat Bryant is pretty obvious in terms of an upgrade in that room. And so is Troy Franklin, right? And I think that one area where we saw so much of Franklin last year was he was body catching everything.
Yeah.
And this year you're starting to kind of see things unravel with Troy where he's using his body when he needs to, right? Like the throw for Jarrett Stidham, it certainly didn't necessarily need to be maybe as much of an on the money throw. I mean, obviously it was an on money throw, but like the way he caught it, it kind of had to be a little bit of a body catch, because if he does catch it with his hands, the DB probably makes a little bit of a play on the ball there to knock it out. And so I think that, there's times where you're starting to kind of see him separate himself, not just from his route running and getting separation, but just separation from obviously the wide receiver room. And then, I think it's pretty obvious you could see the ceiling for him and the wide receiver. And I think that there is maybe this is too far down the road and too forward thinking, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Broncos have their new wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 on this team in the names of Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin. How you want to divvy up who's wide receiver 1 and who's wide receiver 2, that's up to you. But I think that the way things develop and the way that Sean has always developed, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin are your wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2s down the line.
I mean, that's way down the line. Court just got that deal, man. Let the man have his time in the sun. I would revisit this conversation in like 3 years.
Yeah, Mims is probably one of the interesting ones, and Mims is fascinating, because for as much as we did talk about the gadget side of things, like with Marvin, and I made the comparison a little bit before of Harvin. I think, myself included here, forget a little bit about the idea that he played on the boundary. Like, he played on the boundary at Oklahoma, right? So it's not like he's unfamiliar to the idea that he can play boundary. And I also think when he was at Oklahoma, he was a bit of a little bit more of a better route runner than people give him credit for. Frankly, the 3 wide receivers, and granted, Brandon and I were like all on board. Brandon and I were like all on board on some of the wide receivers we wanted that year. It was Marvin Mims, it was Jaden Reed, and it was Trey Palmer. Go Big Red. Those are really like the predominant 3 wide receivers, like in terms of the Broncos side of things, that we were really wanting, for this team. And lo and behold, we ended up with Marvin Mims. So I think that there's a chance that Marvin Mims can really become that Brandon Cooks type of player, or frankly, the other player, which is like Brandon Lloyd, because Mims has such an incredible catch radius to where he can high point the ball and do different things, where he can play like a 6'3" wide receiver. So I don't know, like I don't think it's out of the question. but boy, it is really hard to ignore the excitement of Patrick Bryant. From Duval, by the way. So this is the other part of it too. So what did he do to you, Jordan? Like he's from the Florida area. Like for you to did you have road rage incident with Pat Bryant? Like what happened?
I mean, again, it kind of falls towards the victim of what's already in the wide receiver room. I mean, I've talked about it already, but listen, and by the way, North Florida, I wouldn't really call it, Florida. I think that's just different.
What is this like? Is this like Kansas City and
Yeah,
like
I mean, I think when you talk about Florida, it's probably at most we go from Orlando down. I mean, we don't count the other guys up there. But no, in all seriousness, like listen, I wasn't the most thrilled guy when we drafted Pat Bryant just because of what I thought what we needed in the wide receiver room. Again, who cares what I think about? This is just my opinion. But
I care.
no, I mean, but like I understand like why people may think, oh, I'm just hating on the guy or whatever, because it does seem like that. Like if I were an outsider, I'd probably think the same thing of myself. But in all seriousness, like I hope he does pan out. I think he will be good under Sean Payne under certain circumstances, and I think Payne will make him good in his scheme. Like he's gonna get him open. He's gonna scheme him open with underneath drag routes and stuff like that. Like something we saw in the Cardinals game where he caught the drag route underneath and he caught that deep in route. But again, I just thought for this particular wide receiver room, we needed a different type of flavor in the room. But again, Payne makes the decisions for obvious reasons, and I'm just here in Miami talking about it. But yeah, when it just comes to the wide receiver position in general, like I'm not a big guy on just like big body type possession receivers. I know you need to have one
or Sean
on
loves
the
it.
roster, which is fine, and I understand that, but I just thought at the time we had too many, and now we just traded one away, so that kind of opens up a little bit more of a role for Pat. But
there you go.
Again, a lot of people have said this to me that he's gonna win me over. It's gonna be pretty hard to win me over, especially with how I tend to like my wide receivers, but I do hope he proves me wrong. Like I would 100% say that. But yeah, no, it's for sure going to be interesting.
This guy hates a good player.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him good right now. I mean,
he looks solid. That's all I'm going to say. I think he impressed me, and I mean it's the preseason. He impressed me with just like his ability to be a better route runner than I thought he was, and also look faster than I thought he was at Illinois. But I'm excited. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be in the Devon Vele role, who was in the Fireball Jones role, if you know exactly who I'm talking about. But I think he looks solid.
I will say this to your fast comment, because this is a comment that I know that Jordan has kind of latched on to. Has Brian actually surprised you about maybe how quick he is, Jordan?
I wouldn't say surprised, because again, I still need to see it in the regular season against press man coverage and see what happens.
But at least initially, like right now, like.
Yeah, I think you can say right now just because of who he's going up against, like in the preseason games. That's all we really have to judge off of. We have no practice clips. We have none of that. But yeah, like again, I just have that feeling when it's mid-November, we're having the same conversation about the wide receiver room where there's only one or maybe at best two guys that can only create separation. And if it happens again, especially in a year where our defense is stacked, both supposed to take the next jump, and everybody's telling me that Pat Bryant is going to fill that void, I don't know. I got to see it. If he does, then perfect. We have that guy. But as of right now, I don't see it.
So continuing a theme with this wide receiver room, I want to ask two questions. Because I will say, because then I will give credit where credit is due in terms of this. for him talking about it. But Mario mentioned about like the idea of maybe we are overthinking the idea of a wide receiver 2 on this team, like almost like Moneyball type logic, if you will, in the sense where the wide receiver 2 isn't necessarily going to be Troy Franklin, or the wide receiver 2 isn't going to be Marvin Mims. Like the wide receiver 2 is going to be this player this week, this player another week, etc. So I'll ask you guys that kind of question after this, but now given the fact of the Devon Bailey trade, I don't really think we have a wrong answer for how we would want this wide receiver room to shake out. Like if they kept six standard wide receivers, I don't think is a bad thing. But I think where we do have to probably look at things is like the way things probably currently stand is they're keeping 5 standard wide receivers, with Evan Ingram basically being that 6th wide receiver. So in essence, they still have 6 wide receivers. But we'll start with you, Brandon. Like, how exactly would you look at this wide receiver room, and how many players would you keep? Because there are a couple of those players that are battling for that practice squad or battling for that 6th standard wide receiver spot that really do catch your eye. And he obviously been one of them has been mentioned in the chat already.
Man, I think to me it's going to come down to like you have your obvious guys. So you have Court, you have Marvin Mims, you have Troy Franklin,
Pat Bryant.
You have Pat Bryant, you have Trent Sherfield. Those are going to be like your 5, I think. I would say, or Troy. Did I say Troy Franklin? There's too many names. Cortland Sutton.
He's probably so good he's the same twice.
Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Trent Sherfield. It's because I'm looking at the depth chart. And I'm like, I keep seeing Devon Bailey, and then I'm like, he's not there anymore.
That is getting really old.
Pat Bryant. I must have already said him. I said him. I said him before. Okay, because those are your obvious 5, and then from there it kind of gets into like who impresses you the most. Is it Joaquin Davis? Is it Jerjuan Newton? Is it Courtney Jackson? Courtney Jackson, by the way, I think is probably going to be a player on this 53-man roster. Like he's just looked so good. I think you might see. I mean, obviously, if the potential like continuance of the undrafted rookie will make the roster. I think it's 7 years in a row now. You might have 2 this year. You might have a couple guys, but I think you have your obvious 5, and then from there, like if Courtney Jackson continues to look as good as he's looked, if you like what you see from Newton or Davis, like you could get to 6 or 7, I think, pretty easily. But the fact that there's 5, that's just like a surefire lock. I'm happy about that. Like I think all 5 of those guys have shown like at least some level of improvement over last year, if they aren't rookies, or even just like have come in the case of Trent Sherfield and proven that like they have some juice and can provide something to this offense pretty immediately. And then Troy Franklin, just like to the moon. Like Troy Franklin looks like a completely different player. I don't know what he did in the offseason, but absolute kudos to him for all the work he put in, because he's just like super impressive. So, I mean, yeah, I think if you tell me it's those 5 and Courtney Jackson, like I'm super happy about that. If you tell me it's those 5, Courtney Jackson, and then like Newton or Davis slides in there and is able to stick, I definitely could see you getting to 7, but I definitely think it's going to be 6, because I think you have the original 5, and then one of those other guys is going to probably make it. Right now, I'm guessing Jackson, but you never know.
By the way, Franklin is the guy that has made that jump, and like everybody should be talking about. Like we want to talk about a guy that actually looked really, really good was him. I mean, he flashed big time, and all the hype and talk that we've been hearing about him in training camp. Again, sucks that we can't see clips, but we saw in that game. We saw it. And again,
dude, Troy Franklin is the offseason darling.
And I've been talking about it for a while. I wrote multiple pieces about it on Predominantly Orange. He needs to be that guy to take that step. in order for this offense to take off. He has the prototypical size you want a wide receiver. He has the speed that can just naturally create separation without even just cut with his routes and stuff like that. Just his straight line speed can create separation. But yeah, he is the guy that can really take this offense to the next level.
I mean,
this is his 4th year playing with the Knicks, so
yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah, and so and I think that it is just we need to say it again, because if we didn't, I don't know what. So the thing is, like, I don't know how we would feel. You know what I mean? Like, we asked the question, I want to say it was coming into this offseason, how comfortable would we be if there was no relationship with Bo Nix, you know, and he's going into this type of, obviously not this type of season yet, but just going now into year 2, where would we be as like the way how comfortable we would be, in a sense, you know what I mean? Because he has the chemistry with Bo, I think makes us feel so much more comfortable about him going into year 2. Now we actually have that, right? Like, and are starting to kind of, see it, and we're reaping the benefits from what we're seeing with our eyes from Troy Franklin in preseason and in training camp. Let me ask this question again. Where would you guys be if there was no attachment to Troy Franklin with this kind of jump? Would you guys still be this excited? Or would you guys be excited? I mean, obviously, we're cautiously optimistic in general about Troy. But will we be this amped up about Troy Franklin if there was no attachment to Bo Nix?
I mean, easily. It's not even a question. Like, you have a guy that comes in and looks like he did as a rookie and then makes that absolute quantum leap as going into a second year and shows up the way he looks now and looks like a different player. I don't even, like, you could throw the last 3 years with Bo out the window and I would be so amped for Troy Franklin, dude.
Yeah, I would agree with Brandon here, even though I have heard the other side of this, but I would agree with Brandon on it.
I mean, it's the cherry on top for sure. Like, it's not like I'm not saying it's another thing, but I couldn't care less. Like, if you threw that out the window, I couldn't care less. I would be so amped for Troy Franklin. Like, he just looks. I think it's a combination of things. It's like how he looked last year, how he looks this year, and then also like how starved for more weapons this offense looked last year, and like having a guy come out and be able to like make that jump, because like going into this offseason, we looked at it as, okay, you got Cortland Sutton and who? Everything else was like a question mark. And you're talking about like, can we get like take the wide receiver 1 in next year's draft, like hoping Jeremiah Smith was going to be somehow 1 year early eligibility, which is obviously not possible. Right. But like, can we somehow steal Jeremiah Smith? That's obviously not happening for 2 years. But like that was the conversation going into the offseason, because it's kind of just like Cortland Sutton and question mark, except for Devon Vele, who's not even on the team anymore. And then now, I mean, again, it just kind of goes back to like Devon Vele was like kind of the reliable dude, the reliable second option as a wide receiver last year. Mims, I think, was obviously good, but I think he was more of a gadget guy. That if like your wide receiver room made so much of a leap that the guy that was your solid weapon 2 on offense last year is now expendable, like that's insane. That's such a huge leap. And like Troy Franklin developing into what he looks like he's developing into is absolutely massive.
Yeah, if there is a big takeaway from the whole Devon Vele trade, it really is this. And I don't know how, Mr. Haterade over there in the bottom feels about this, but it's just it really is about the idea of the wide receiver room. Just simply trading Devon Vele tells you how deep this wide receiver room has been. And the Broncos wide receiver room, maybe on paper, has at least led us to the idea that it had been deep in the past. It had just been a true to form in the last 10 years quarterback play. Like it's about how the quarterback play has been, and that's kind of like brought down that wide receiver room. You know what I mean? But I just think that it's a beautiful feeling to know about how deep this wide receiver room really is right now, because you don't make that type of decision if there aren't other players performing or other, players fulfilling the roles that they need to. And I thought that, it's the Devon Bailey thing really is so interesting because it's an amalgamation of a lot of things. It started with the Evan Ingram signing, right? It started with the Evan Ingram signing of him controlling the middle of the field. Then you add in the idea of Pat Bryant. You add the idea of, Troy Franklin taking that leap, right? And then you add into the layers of possibly RJ Harvey on, angle routes, work in the middle of the field, and, possible routes in the middle of the field, or even, as we said, Ingram in the middle of the part of the field, or even Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. Because like Troy Franklin, for anybody that does not know, he has been operating at times in the slot, which is kind of freaky in the sense because, you have a guy with speed in the slot, with far more speed and breakaway speed than Devon Bailey. So you add that, it's a nightmare scenario possibly for the Broncos, and you have that safety net for Bo that he, obviously trusts. So I think that there was just too much of an uphill battle for Bailey. There was a lot of mouths to feed, and to mention what Zach Zegers mentioned, too, today, it's like you look at the pecking order, right? Like you look at the pecking order. Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant were being played above Devon Bailey. That should have been probably our first initial big takeaway, right? Like, was these guys are playing above him. Obviously, Bailey's been injured and he's had a bit of an uphill climb, but playing above him and playing quite well, is a problem. And then the wide receiver rooms together, like Joaquin Davis, our boy Jordan, he's playing really well. Corny Jackson is playing quite well. He had, as Brandon mentioned, he had a bounce back game against the Cardinals. It seems like he might be the fan favorite for wanting, him to be wide receiver 6, on this team. So I want to ask you guys this last question. And it actually has to deal with Corny Jackson and actually Marvin Mims for that example. And I asked this because it was a question that was posed by Mundungus on 5280. And I really do think it's a very good question to ask. Say they add Corny Jackson. Are the Broncos moving away from the idea of Marvin Mims as a punt returner, or I should say a specialist? I mean, it's a very interesting question to ask because he's been an all-pro punter. So why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? But it's a very interesting question. So if they do bring on Corny Jackson, who's clearly shown an idea to get better to being a punt returner, Brandon, Jordan, are we moving away from the idea possibly of Marvin Mims being a specialist at punt returning?
I think it depends entirely on how to use Marvin Mims in the offense. If you're trying to get Marvin Mims on more like actual routes, use him as like a full-on wide receiver and not just like a gadget player, then I do think you could maybe see Cortney Jackson take over that return role, just because you want to get Marvin like more actual snaps in the offense and you want to keep some wear and tear off of him and not make him return. But I mean, it's kind of like what you saw with Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs. I'm not saying that he's Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill starts out as that like dynamic returner and then gets involved as being more of like an obvious weapon in the passing game. And then he's not used as much as a returner, and just like for being able to remain fresh, giving him, more like offensive snaps. I think if that happens, then I definitely could see a situation where Cortney Jackson is more of the return player. I do think there was some things like Cortney Jackson, like as a returner, he looked good, but I do think Marvin Mims was like,
he's an all-pro
returner. Like Cortney Jackson looked decent, but he definitely had some times where he was looking like side to side, and he was kind of moving laterally and not getting upfield as much as he could as quickly as quickly as he could, and he was like losing ground and just like costing himself yards on the return. So I do think he looks promising, but it depends on how he continues to look. And if this is going to be like a deep run playoff team, you're going to need consistency at the return spot. And that's going to be more Marvin, I think, right now. But I mean, if you stick with Marvin as going to be your return guy, I think Courtney Jackson's done enough to prove he could be like a solid depth wide receiver for you as well. So like you can't really go wrong with him. Like you can have him as a wide receiver 5 or 6, wide receiver 6 probably. And then if he doesn't work out as a return guy, or if he does, you can still have him as a wide receiver 6. There's some depth, and then you can give Marvin Mims a break and use him more as part of the actual offense. So I think that's how I see this going.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what Jordan says.
I mean, I would say, like, do they have a plan in place where, again, if you are making the decision, you have to, like, Marvin Mims, again, Brandon, you just mentioned it. He's an all-pro returner. So, like, this will be a downgrade nonetheless. Even if, and I'm not trying to knock off Courtney Jackson, but it is. Marvin Mims Jr. is an all-pro returner. So, what if you do replace that, it's a big downgrade. But with that being said,
yeah,
Marvin Mims Jr. getting more snaps on the offense, like, which, of course, we all want to see happen. But now, does that mean is Mims only going to take punt returns and maybe Courtney Jackson will do the kickoff returns with somebody else? Does Marvin Mims not do kickoffs at all? Is he only the punt return guy? Like maybe they only do that. I don't know. I find it very hard to believe that he's not returning any kicks, whether that's kickoffs or punts. Like I think he's going to do one or the other. I think it's more so punts, but again, we'll see.
There's also a wild card option here, and I think would be about the new kickoff rule. That's
what I was going to say.
I love the idea of if they do have more running backs, like 4, the idea of like Blake Watson and Tyler Bidet doing.
Dude, what you got against Tyler Bidet, man?
Oh, I just like calling him Tyler Toilet.
It sounds like an insult.
No, like having Tyler Bidet and Blake Watson as like your kickoff returners, I love it. Just given the fact about like the new kickoff rule and everything, the vision that running backs have, the blocking, like it, I just love the idea of it to where you can possibly have Blake Watson, who's clearly, who's clearly, got the versatility of wide receiver and running back and everything. So I think it's one where I think you probably have a little bit of a higher ceiling, and that's obviously not counting if they were to think crazy and everything and put Marvin Mims back there. But by the way, can we quickly acknowledge about how they just continue to push the new kickoff and the new touchback further and further and further? Like it just feels like just yesterday, the touchback was at the 20. And now the touchback is at the 35.
35, a full first down and 5 yards.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
But yeah, so the running back position is one where I'm like, okay, maybe that's also another angle of like special teams of possibly like a way that they can go for like specifically kickoff return and everything. Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting. So we're wrapping up here the show here in just a little bit. It is the last preseason game. It is a very early game. For the preseason. Maybe if you live on, one of the most hated time zones on the planet down there in Florida, you would be there at, 2:00. But we all know that God loves the Mountain West time zone the best. So it is going to be at noon, down here in the beautiful state of Colorado. So it will be done early. That is the best part. It'll be done early, and we can be on with their day. But what are you guys looking out for? Like I said, it is the last preseason game. We're probably all sickos. We enjoy watching preseason. It is the epitome of an underdog story because they're all fighting for that roster spot. But Brandon, like, what are you looking for when it comes to this last preseason game?
Y'all got any more of that, Troy Franklin? Yeah, I just want to see him continue the train here. Like, just keep it rolling. Go right into the regular season with this on fire streak that he's got going right now. I want to see more Bo too. Like, I want to see Bo get more into a rhythm. I think he was a little shaky in the first game, which is like obviously to be expected for like this being his first game that he's played since last year, but definitely want to see him get more into a rhythm. Just the starters in general want to see more of the run game. And I'm really excited to see, like, when we're talking about non-starters, like, I'm excited to see more Courtney Jackson. I'm excited to see some more of these depth guys, more Blake Watson, I think, as well is going to be exciting. I want to see Evan Ingram get a touchdown. Like, that's just like, I don't even care if it's one play, get him a touchdown, take him out of the game. I don't even know. He might not even play that much, but I just want to see the starters look solid and like kind of build some momentum. And then I want to see just some of the guys that we're keeping an eye on that are more depth pieces right now that are like fighting for a roster spot, or maybe a guy that we talked about today that like we're expecting to kind of be one of the final spots, like, you know, maybe Courtney Jackson. I want to see more like of Newton, maybe more Davis, just kind of see what that battle looks like. But I think that's going to be super fun to see. And I want to see Jonah Ellis more as well. Like, as much as I love him and I think he should play more with the starters, like the edge room is so good. He's like, unfortunately, he's kind of a backup or like rotational edge right now. And I just want to be able to enjoy him while I can. And I want to see him like wreck some drives. That'll be fun.
Well, for me, I will say I'm actually going to say no wide receivers. No wide receivers to look out for me. Just because I don't want to, continue to piss people.
Looks like hell froze over.
Yeah, I don't want to continue to piss people off tonight
on this, man. I mean, yeah. I know I talked about the wide receivers, but there's other positions on this team, and I feel like that's just been beaten to death.
I know. I think I've made the majority of the people mad tonight, so I'll just leave off on the wide receivers. But actually, I do want to see Alex Forsyth. I know that he's going to get a lot of playing time. I want to continue to prove my my opinion that he should be the starting center.
You know, it's interesting, and maybe it's worth having Pat on, or maybe we bring Strez on again because he was a former running back, but really kind of like dive into the idea just from the offensive line standpoint, because obviously Wattenberg is the starter, but I do wonder, and this is just a passing question, and maybe that goes for the next show, or maybe we save it for afterwards, but maybe there is something to be said about an offensive line adjustment from an outside zone to an inside, or from an inside zone to an outside zone. Is it a little bit of an adjustment? Obviously, schematically wise, we would think that it's something. So maybe they're adjusting a little bit, and that would probably fall in line maybe with Alex Forsyth a little bit, right? So I think that maybe there is something to the idea that there's a door open for Forsyth still, So I think for me, it's just continuing the depth theme. And I know we talked a little bit about that too, but like just the linebacker room, what is that going to be shaking out? Cornerback room. Are they going to be, we didn't actually get a chance to touch overall about the cornerback room, but do they keep five, right? The five true locks of this team. I think is going to be quite interesting because, it might be one where I think if they keep five, maybe they keep lesser safeties or more safeties, because it might lend us to the idea that maybe they want Barron to play some safety. And if they are roaming him around, it's going to afford them the opportunity to where maybe they can, keep more players or less players at that position because of that versatility with Barron, or just their versatility in general for some of these players. Offensive line, we didn't get a chance to touch on it, but Nick Ergulio went down. Prayers up to him as he's recovering from injury. He was set to be on the 53-man roster, and possibly a little bit down the line to be overreactionary. possibly a Ben Powers replacement. So it's gonna be super exciting to watch the depth and everything. A little bit of a news and promotional item, if you will, but the next show that'll be Wednesday, we have CBS reporter, news reporter, and sports reporter Justin Adams on the show for Wednesday. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So we're gonna get a chance to talk about these Denver Broncos with Justin Adams. So he is going to be on the show. And we are kind of like in the talks to possibly have another guest on for the week of NFL kickoff. The day might get a little bit different on that one, so we can be able to, be flexible for the guests and everything. So just kind of stay out for that. We also might be doing a special episode for the 53-man roster prediction, our 53-man roster prediction. I think we may try, at least on the tentative front, to try and maybe do Sunday and try and work through a time. We will let you guys know certainly what the time, but a 53-man roster prediction, for possibly a show. It's not a guarantee, but for possibly a show. And I think we're kind of eyeballing Sunday, but it's gonna be a fun time. Broncos season is fast approaching. And it's gonna be an exciting time. So thank you guys so much for hopping in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for the MHRT Network page over there on YouTube. We're watching you guys. We're watching you guys. Also hit the subscribe button for the Mainly Broncos page over there on YouTube. We just started it. I want to say it was about 3 weeks ago. So please hit the subscribe button. We're, I think, almost at 10 subscribers right now. Obviously follow the boys. Follow Jordan at Jordan T. Lopez. Follow Brandon Miller PO. We stream from our X handles. I just want you guys to know that we stream from our X handles as well as YouTube. So make sure you guys can watch the stream at any point from wherever you guys feel comfortable, but still make sure you hit that subscribe button for MHRT Network and hit the subscribe button for Me the Broncos. Don't make me repeat myself, because it makes me feel like I'm getting older and older and older. So again, thank you guys so much for hopping in the chat. And we will see you guys next week for a brand new episode of the Mainly Broncos podcast.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might